There was a first time. You did not see it. You were not watching. You had no idea it was happening. But somewhere in the past, last spring, last autumn, possibly years ago, there was a specific night, a specific hour, a specific moment when a hedgehog approached your garden for the very first time. It had never been here before. It did not know what was here, whether it was safe, whether it was worth the risk of entering. And in those first few minutes, while you slept or watched television or sat in your kitchen unaware, it made a series of decisions that determined everything that came after, whether to enter at all, whether to stay, whether to come back. That first night is the night this whole story begins, and almost nobody knows what actually happens during it. To understand the first night, you have to understand where the hedgehog comes from, not as a species, but as an individual arriving in your garden on that specific night. In most cases, it is a juvenile, born between May and August, and dispersing from its mother from July onward. It spends its first solo weeks searching for a territory, not a defended space like in wolves or foxes, but a network of connected routes across gardens that can support survival. To build this network, it explores. It does not move random. It follows scent trails left by other hedgehogs, using them as a map of already tested habitat. These trails guide it through fences, across roads, and through gardens whose owners have no idea they are part of its route. It tests paths, assesses corridors, and covers ground. Eventually, on a night that looks ordinary to you, it reaches the boundary of your garden. The hedgehog does not enter your garden immediately. This is the first thing most people do not realize. On a first visit, the boundary assessment alone can last between 10 and 40 minutes. The animal works its way along the fence or wall, nose constantly active, building a chemical picture of what lies inside. Your garden is already releasing information beyond its boundaries. The compost bin, flower beds after rain, the grass, the shed, and even the lingering scent from the last time you were outside. The hedgehog is reading your garden before it enters it, and it is assessing several things at once. Food potential, the scent of earthworms, beetles, damp soil, and signs of slug or snail activity. Water, the scent of standing fresh water can be detected from a considerable distance. Shelter, log piles, leaf heaps, dense shrubs, and spaces beneath structures all register as potential nesting sites. It also evaluates threat level. Human scent is processed for both recency and frequency. Fresh scent raises caution, while older familiar scent often registers as a predictable risk rather than an immediate threat. Your garden is being evaluated on all of these criteria simultaneously before the hedgehog decides to enter. Before we continue, here is something worth thinking about. Can you remember the first time you ever saw a hedgehog in your garden? What was it doing? Where exactly was it? Write it in the comments. I read every single one, and the details people share are often remarkable. The decision to enter is not made all at once. It is made in stages. The hedgehog finds the entry point first, a gap beneath a fence panel, a space under a gate, a hole in a wall. If no entry point exists, the assessment ends here. The hedgehog moves on. Your garden remains unknown to it. But if an entry point exists, even a narrow one, the hedgehog pauses at it. This pause is longer than you would expect. It stands at the threshold, literally one body length from the gap, and performs a final, concentrated assessment. Nose raised, ears forward, completely still. It is asking one question. Is what is on the other side worth the vulnerability of passing through a confined space? A confined space is dangerous. An animal squeezing through a gap cannot curl into defensive position, cannot retreat quickly. It is, for those few seconds, exposed. The hedgehog knows this, and it will not enter unless the assessment says the reward justifies the risk. If it enters, the first movement inside your garden is slow, careful, every sense operating at maximum sensitivity. It does not move toward the food source immediately. It moves to the nearest cover, a shrub, a fence line, a shadow, and from that cover, it begins to map. The first night in a new garden is not primarily about feeding. It is about information. The hedgehog spends the majority of its first visit building a spatial and chemical map of this new space. moving along the perimeter first, then inward in careful increments, investigating surfaces, reading chemical histories, identifying the locations of potential food sources, water, and shelter. It is not eating yet, not primarily. It is learning. Every object is investigated. Every surface is read. The layout of the space, the distribution of scent sources, the location of the exit points. All of this is being encoded, and something else is happening simultaneously. The hedgehog is assessing the human presence in this garden more precisely than it could from outside. Your scent is on everything you have touched. The garden tools, the fence, the path you walk most often, the tap you turn, the area where you stand to look at the flower bed. From these scent deposits, the hedgehog is building a behavioral model of you, how often you are in this garden, which areas you frequent, whether your pattern of presence is predictable or erratic, whether the scent carries stress indicators or calm ones. On the first night, you are being assessed as thoroughly as your garden is. At some point in the first night, usually between 40 minutes and 2 hours after entry, the hedgehog makes a preliminary calculation, not a conscious decision in any human sense, a biological summary of accumulated data. Is this garden viable? The calculation weighs what was found against what was risked, food potential detected against threat level assessed, shelter available against human presence frequency indicated by scent. If the calculation returns positive, and in a garden with accessible food, water, and shelter, it usually does, the hedgehog does something specific before it leaves. It marks a small scent deposit on a surface near the entry point, on a surface near the primary food area identified during mapping. These marks serve a function that is both simple and significant. They are reminders, chemical anchors that will still be detectable when the animal returns. Markers that say, this is a place I have been. This is a place that was worth investigating. They are also, potentially, readable by other hedgehogs, but on that first night, they are primarily for the animal itself. A note left in the landscape. I was here. It was worth it. Come back. The hedgehog does not return the following night. This surprises people, but the first visit is rarely followed by an immediate second. The animal has other routes to complete, other areas still being assessed, other parts of its emerging territory network still being mapped. It may be 3 nights before it returns, sometimes 5. Once, in a monitored study of juvenile hedgehog territory establishment, an animal returned to a newly discovered garden after 11 days. But when it does return, something has changed. The visit is different. The lengthy boundary assessment is shorter. The threshold pause is briefer. The entry is more confident. The first movement inside is less cautious. The map is already partly built. The human scent is already partly profiled. On the second visit, the hedgehog spends less time mapping and more time using. It moves toward the areas identified as food-rich on the first visit. It checks the water source identified on the first visit. It investigates the shelter location identified on the first visit. The garden is no longer unknown territory. It is a place this hedgehog has been before, a place it assessed and found viable, a place it chose. And with each subsequent visit, the route becomes more established, the behavior more efficient, the threat assessment of your specific human presence more refined. Until one night, perhaps weeks after that first cautious entry, the hedgehog crosses your garden, not carefully and tentatively, but with the easy confidence of an animal moving through familiar space. Your garden has become part of its world. Here is what I want to leave you with. Every hedgehog that regularly visits a garden went through this process. Every animal that you have ever seen cross your lawn, pause at your compost heap, drink from a dish you left out. It arrived for the first time on a specific night, conducted a specific assessment, made a specific decision, and chose your garden, not because it had no choice, not because it happened to be there, because your garden, on that first night, met the criteria, offered enough, felt viable enough, presented a human scent pattern consistent enough to register as manageable rather than threatening. It chose you without you knowing, without you doing anything intentional to make it happen. Your garden passed a test you did not know you were taking. Think about your garden tonight. The gap in your fence, if one exists, is an open door. Right now, somewhere in your neighborhood, a juvenile hedgehog is ranging, building its territory network, following scent trails through connected gardens. It may reach your boundary tonight. It may stand at your fence in the dark, nose working, reading everything your garden is broadcasting. And if what it finds meets the criteria, food potential, water, shelter, a human presence that feels predictable rather than threatening, it will enter quietly, carefully, without announcement, and begin the process of making your garden part of its world. You will probably not know it happened. You will just notice, one evening weeks from now, a small shape crossing your lawn, as if it has always been there, because from that moment, from that first careful night, it has. Here is the question I want to leave you with. If a hedgehog is assessing your garden right now, standing at your fence in the dark, reading everything your garden offers, what do you think it would find? Would your garden pass the test? Leave your honest answer in the comments. And if you want to change that answer, the next video on this channel tells you exactly what makes a garden worth choosing. If this video gave you something real, not entertainment, not exaggeration, just the genuine truth about an animal living alongside us, then you already know whether this channel is worth your time. Every video here is built the same way. No guesswork, no clickbait, just the remarkable, documented truth. If that is what you are looking for, the button is right there.